I think what you got to do is just do what's in your heart, be original, and just do what you want to do, and it'll come across fine. Don't try to write for radio, because everyone tries to write for radio, and then you're just basically, you're taking, Nickelback songs and Shinedown songs and trying to write that, 3.5 minute hit. It's never going to work. Just do what you do, and you'll stand out.
Good morning and welcome to RenmanMusicandBusiness.com. My name is Steve Rennie and I am the Renman. And for all you folks that are looking to do something big in the music business but need a little help and inspiration, you are in the right place today. Our guest today is none other than M. Shadow, who's the lead vocalist and founding member of Avenged Sevenfold, who's here today to talk about his brand new video game, all things Avenged Sevenfold, and probably a few other things we haven't even considered yet. For all you folks that are new to the website, haven't been here before, let me tell you what we're up to. A while back, I started this website called Renman Music and Business. Show it up there if you would, Code. Am I on, FVJ? All right. Anyway, I started this website to help mentor young artists and music professionals that were looking to do something big in the music business. The best way to learn the music business, I've found, is to hang out with smarter, more talented people than yourself. And we've had quite a few of them here over the last 2 years, 100 of the smartest, most talented artists and professionals who've come and shared their experience with our members out there. One of the things I've learned over the years, if you want to learn, you got to ask some questions. We've got a saying around here at the camp: you don't ask, you don't get, and you don't learn shit. So don't be shy. I have a feeling this is not a shy bunch here today based on the early phone calls. So go ahead and ask some questions here, and we will get them answered for you here today. I noticed that quite a few of the Avenged Sevenfold fans have posted questions asking about, advice for the music business. If you haven't checked it out yet, when you go to our website, I want you to click on that little tab, Renman U, which gives you all kinds of lessons about the music business that I've learned in my 36 years plus of doing this. Now, if you're just joining us and you want to know how to ask questions today, there's a couple ways to do it. You can post that question online on our website ahead of time. Do we have that, Code? Right there. You would have to be a member to log in. We had so many freaking questions that I was up all night trying to write them all down. So we'll try to get to them as many as you can during the show today. You can also ask questions over in the YouTube chat room. If you've got something on your mind, feel free to throw it in there, and we'll try to get that answered. And then for all you really freaking bold ones out there, we're going to go old. They're already calling. You can call us on the Renman hotline, 310-469-9067. And if you are bold enough to call in and step to the front of the line, we're going to give you one of these fine Fuck the Gatekeeper t-shirts as a little reminder for all the shit you're going to face. Just, you know what to tell them. All right, that's it. That's a little history of how we go. Let's get right into it because we've got a great guest and an enthusiastic bunch here today. My guest today is founding member and lead vocalist of one of the most successful hard rock bands on the planet these days. Over the course of the last 15 years, he and his bandmates have carved out a unique niche in the metal scene and beyond. Their last two albums both debuted at #1 on the album Billboard Top 200 album charts. They have become one of the most successful live touring acts with a huge following around the whole world. And they've built one of the most dedicated and loyal fan bases you could possibly imagine. So without any further ado, let me welcome Mr. M. Shadows to Renman Live. How you doing, man? Good, man.
Good to see you.
I can't remember anybody's name, M, so I'll fuck it up. What should I call you? M? Shadows?
Matt is fine.
Matt? Okay, fine.
Matt,
I got a son, Matt. That'll be easy. Okay, great. First off, let me thank you for taking the time to join us here today.
No worries.
We'll tell everybody later why you're really here, but for right now, we'll just make it look like we're old buddies. So yeah, okay. I really do appreciate it because there's so many people out there that are dreaming about doing something big in the music business. And I find that most of them don't know how to get started, right? So I've been so lucky to have so many of my friends in the business come here, people that have been doing it for years, and talk about how they got started, importantly, but how they also got doing it. So I've asked every guest this question. I'll ask you the same thing. How did you get started in music and then ultimately decide that this might be something you want to do for a living?
Well, I guess the first way I was introduced to music was my mom made me take piano lessons when I was a little kid. And I wouldn't say I fell in love with music at that point because it was more of a chore to do my lessons, but it's one of those things where she said, "You'll thank me later," and I did thank her eventually. Then I did, choir when I was a little kid as well, and through piano and choir, I kind of got sick of music and was more into sports. Played sports my whole life, and then I got sick of sports and went back to music and got a guitar when I was in 6th grade. I met James the Rev Sullivan, who passed away 5 years ago, but he was our drummer and he was my best friend for 18 years. And when I met him, he opened my eyes up to heavy metal. His whole room was just a disaster with Slayer posters and Metallica posters, and he could play everything on the drums already. He'd been playing since he was a little boy, and so I just got into music because my friends were into it, and when we decided to start a band, we said, this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And then, basically, one thing I hear from a lot of bands nowadays, they go, well, how long were you going to do it before you stopped doing it? And I always think that was just never even an option. We had friends, and we got in a van together, and we were going on Warped Tour at 17, and that was it.
See, it's interesting to hear you say that, because almost every musician that I've met, when you ask them, so why did you do this? It always ends with, dude, I had to do this. Yeah. And it sounds like it was the same story for you guys. Let me ask you another question. When you're starting off in a band, I found that lots of band members that have been in successful bands have been in other bands along the way that didn't work out for one reason or another. And one of the things I've learned over my 36 years in the music business is that picking the right partners, whether it's your musical partners, your creative partners, or your business partners, has a huge impact on your likelihood of success. You started with the Rev, and somewhere along the line you picked up some other members of the band, and you've gone through a couple personnel changes, which is not atypical of bands that have been around a while. Over the years, you've had those lineup changes. You've tried to figure out. Talk about how you came to this group of players. What was it that attracted you to this group of guys? And what might have been some of the lessons you learned along the way in picking your musical partners?
Yeah, well, the core 5 guys that we had through, the Waking the Fallen album all the way to, the White album would have been the Rev, Sinister Gates, Zaki Vengeance, Johnny Christ, and myself. And those guys just happened to be my best friends that I grew up with. And it was more about playing music with my friends, not necessarily trying to be in a band. We wanted to play music and we were there for each other, and we wanted to kind of buck all the trends of all the things you see on VH1 Behind the Music, all the things of the troubles you get into and band members stabbing each other in the back or people not liking each other. Our band was always about friendship and about just being there for each other. Until Jimmy died, that obviously threw a wrench in things, we had to pick up the pieces from there. But you're just looking for people that are dedicated, people that appreciate where they're at, people that don't take things for granted, people that are humble, people that want to work hard and have a drive. I mean, we've always had a drive that I always talk about. It's kind of like when Kobe goes on the floor, we want to dominate. When we play live, we don't want any band to blow us off the stage. We want to blow that band off the stage. And so for different things, we have that drive and that passion in us where, we don't want to lose. And we love what we do.
It's funny how many bands, great bands, have started as mates. U2 comes to mind. My old buddies in Incubus started similar out in Calabasas and buddies. Luckily for you guys, all these guys turned out to be great players. These guys are not schlubs, you got a lot of talent, musical talent in that band as well. But you hit on something for all the folks that are watching out here that it's underrated. You can talk about great musical talent, you can talk about great singers, but bands stay together and become great when they actually get along and there's some respect there, right? Yep. And I think that's an important lesson for all the folks that are out there watching, that, having great musicians is one thing, having great musicians that respect and enjoy each other's company and share that same, I can tell you're a competitive guy. It's not like you want to see the other guys do bad, but wanting to be great.
Yeah, and having the drive to do it. And people, there's different personalities. You got to think that if your band's going to become successful, you're going to have 15, 20 years in a van and living with them. And you need to be able to, immediately figure out what makes people tick and just stay away from those situations. Yeah. You have to be smart about it.
And it's not sometimes always the easiest thing to do.
No,
there's all kinds of ways to get in trouble and sidetracked in a band when everybody's coming up telling you you're great and it's Saturday night for everybody and for band members and the professionals. This is what they do for a living. So good stuff. All right, we got so many questions from your fans today. Usually I do most of the talking on our guests, but today I'm going to let your wonderful fans take a look at it. I get this email all the time from kids. They go, dude, I started a band, how do I get it started? How do I do the next step? You get together, you form your band, you start making songs, and then somebody goes, hey, we should go out and gig. Who was that guy, and how did you get those first few gigs?
Well, we were lucky. We were from Orange County. There was a hardcore scene. There was a underground punk scene. And that helps a lot because there's already a built-in fan base for people that are interested in the type of music you're playing. So for us, we called friends that were, a lot of the guys in bands like Bleeding Through and 18 Visions, and they were bands that were really established in the scene. And they were seniors at the high school I was a freshman at, and then we were all freshmen and sophomores at. So became friends with them through a music class at Huntington High School. And then, they're helping out their bros by putting us on their shows. And so it was one of those things where, for every band it's different. There's always a different story, but for us there was like a scene that welcomed us at first and wanted to hear aggressive, heavy music that was a little different than what was being played on the radio. Yeah. So we jumped on that, and then that's where we started. We just started gigging at Chain Reaction and Showcase Theater and stuff like that.
God, you're bringing back memories. Yeah. You mentioned another one, great lesson for folks out there. They ask me all the time how to get on other dates, right? And I'm only half kidding them. I say there's two ways. One, you got to be a networking motherfucker, right? Yeah. And I just suspect that you don't seem very shy. And I'm betting you were out there pressing the flesh and gathering names and numbers. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But the best way is friends of band, right? The manager can want to have a support band on. Larry, you don't know this. We got all these bands that mean tickets, but if the band wants to take out their friend, you're in business. So the moral of that story is, folks, go out there, press the flesh, hang out with other people out there and become friends. People want to do business with people they like, I find, which it seems obvious, but most people don't get it. All right, before we take that question there, I want to talk about something else. When you start gigging, you're using your friends, you're networking, you're making things happen. The next step up is, okay, man, we should put out a record. Right? Yeah. That's the next step in the chain. You guys did a couple records with an independent label called Hopeless Records, right? Now, the first question I want to ask is, how did you guys go from making the band happen, starting to gig, starting to attract a little attention, to getting a record deal? How did that happen? That's the other great mystery for people.
Well, like I said, for every band it should be different, but for us, we were sending out demos to every label we could think of, from Epitaph to Fat Records to, every European label. And a European label called Good Life that was in Belgium, which was a guy and a buddy that was putting out records, but to us it was a big deal, actually wrote us back and sent us a one-page contract and said, well, I'll put out your record and I'll give you $2,500 to record it. And he knew a guy named Donnell Cameron, who's a producer in Hollywood, who did Bad Religion records and did some Blink records and Pennywise records. And we were like, oh, we're huge fans of those bands. That's great. $2,500. We got some money.
So you signed that thing and sent it right back to him?
Signed it right away, yeah.
No lawyers?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Which actually helped us in the end, not having a lawyer to do that. But, so basically we said, okay, well, we have $2,500. It's going to cost about $5,000 to do this record. So we all got jobs for the summer and earned the rest of the money. And we wrote our songs, and we went into West Beach Studios down there on Sunset, recorded our first record. And then after that, it was all about building a fan base.
So this is prior to Hopeless Records.
Prior to Hopeless, yeah. So
you got the big fat $2,500 record deal.
Big signing bonus. Bought a new car, of course.
You know Blasco?
Yeah.
Blasco, same story. He said, hey, we got a fucking record deal. They sent us a 30-page contract. We said, fuck! And we just sent it back to him. And I thought, not recommended in general,
folks, not recommended in general.
But you got to get started,
but
right?
We were doing it very DIY, and we didn't want a manager at first. We didn't want, because our favorite bands like Rancid, them didn't have managers, So we were very, we wanted to do it ourselves. And basically, what was important to us and what helped us in the long run was that we built a fan base first before we ever signed with a major, before we ever did anything. We built a fan base. We could go sell out Chain Reaction. We could do these certain things. So all of a sudden, the labels were interested in us. So when Hopeless heard, that record, they were immediately interested, and we ended up signing with them for the next record, and they ended up buying that record off of Good Life. So they re-released it as a Hopeless record. But for us, it was all about getting that fan base first. And like I said, if that scene wasn't there, it would have been really hard.
Yeah, it's you know, I love talking to you because you're saying all of the right things because this is how it happens. People expect that they're going to do something in their room, and I don't know, you know, they're expecting somebody to fly in and knock on their door. Hey, I heard this as I was walking down the street.
It's almost bad for you if that happens.
It doesn't happen really.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
It might happen enough to keep the dream alive, but more often than not, it's exactly what you described here. You go out and you build something on your own, and those skills that you learn when you're playing manager, agent, promotion guy, and all that actually serve you well later, I think, right?
Yep.
So you do a couple records for Hopeless Records, right? And which is great. Indie label, and while most people don't consider metal bands indie, I don't know why, but you know,
Yeah.
it's like if you're not jingly jangly, you can't be an indie band. But you guys were an indie band too, and what I find is that so many indie artists, while it's important that they learn all those skills that you just described, I've always made the case that it's really because you're auditioning at the development league to get a shot with the bigs, right?
Yep.
So you do 2 successful records that did really well with Hopeless Records, and then you guys decide to sign with Warner Brothers Records, which is as big and badass major label as you can get with a great rock history, you know? Talk about what it was that motivated you to sign with those big guys, and more importantly, what they added to the Avenged Sevenfold game that you were lacking.
Yeah, well, you know, in between all that time, we got our manager, Larry Jacobson, who we're still with today. Yep,
He's here today. Can you
Yep.
get him on the cam there? He's low key. You know, Larry, everybody's in the act here, okay? All right. Cody's.
So, but that was a big deal for us because, you know, at first we wanted to do a record, our Waking the Fallen record. We actually wanted to use a certain producer. And we had met with Larry, and he said, well, you guys are going about it the wrong way. That's not how you get a producer. You don't just send him a demo, you know, because the guy basically wrote back and said, this is the worst band I've ever heard. And we were like crushed. And so we had a dinner with Larry. We said, we don't want a manager, blah, blah, blah. But he convinced us to give him a shot. And the first thing he does is he goes and finds a producer for Waking the Fallen, which was on Hopeless Records. And he said, the best thing you guys can do is put out another record on an indie. You know, just be an independent band and just do what you want to do. So we did that, and what happened was we ended up selling, you know, 150,000 records on that record at that time, which when we got approached by a major label, it gave us we had all the, you know.
Some cards on your, in your hand there.
Yeah, exactly. So when we signed our deal with Warner, and there was a bidding war between different labels, but Warner was the one that had the rock history. And Warner was the one that Larry, who knew all the guys in the industry at that time, he suggests that was the label that was going to give us all the creative control. And so we signed a deal that gave us 100% creative control, and it was all because of that fan base and being able to sell records on an independent level at that point. So going to them was really cool, but the thing about Warner, what I can say that they gave us was that they just stayed out of our hair. We had Tom Wally, who was super hands-off, but in a way that was always supporting us. I mean, he didn't come in to hear City of Evil until it was done. And him and Craig Aronson came in, the record was done. And the same thing with the White Album, they came in when it was done. And it was one of those things where they were just letting us develop at our own time, and they knew that our fans weren't going to appreciate trying to stick Avenged Sevenfold into a box and throw them on the radio. It just happened naturally.
Yeah. Let's talk about radio, right? Because I think it's great what you're talking about. And again, the lesson for people out there is once you've developed your own thing, right? The labels just want something that's working. If they have to come up with the idea, they will. But if they find something that's already working,
Yeah.
This notion of the big bad evil empire telling you what to do, I find is not nearly as true in the rock world as it is in the pop world, where
Yeah.
they're crafting some fucking God knows what, right?
Yeah.
But on Hopeless Records, I'm betting that you didn't get a lot of airplay on Hopeless Records, and I know that you've gotten a shitload of fucking airplay since you've been on Warner Brothers Records. Do you find that they give you creative control, but what they bring to the party is muscle, resources, infrastructure?
Absolutely. When we signed with them, you know, we had no music video for, you know, our song off of Waking the Fallen, which was Unholy Confessions, and they came in before they even released a record on Warner. They paid for us to make a music video on Hopeless. So Hopeless had the video, but it was Warner that actually came in and gave us the money to do it. And then we went there, and then you have great radio team where they sit there and they say, this is the next band, you need to play this, you know, and then the radio at that point, it's gotta happen, but at least it gave us a shot. It gave us a foot in the door, and on an independent label, we weren't gonna have that shot.
Yeah, and see, it's interesting, I think, because, you know, I say this all the time, and it bums some of our members out, that I've never met a band yet that started as an indie band that when presented an opportunity to take a bigger ride, said, no, I just want to be indie. It just doesn't happen. So the moral of the story, folks, is, do what Matt and his bandmates did here, build something up, get a little leverage on your team, and then it's like bringing in the battleships, man. This is, if I said to you, does the music business sound like a pissing match or a war, what would you say?
Yeah, well,
this is war.
Yeah.
This is war. You've written a couple of songs about it. Yeah, that's the way it is.
You got to think when you get played on the radio for the first time, you want there to be all these kids that are invested in your band that are excited about it, not like, who is this?
Yeah.
And that's just starting from scratch. If you go straight to a major and they go straight to the radio, it's really hard that way. I mean,
how did it feel the first time you heard your band on the radio?
Oh, it was awesome. I remember it was on Warped Tour. I think it was Warped Tour, and we were all getting off stage in Pomona. I think it might have been 2003 or 4, and K-Rock was playing Backcountry, and it was on their Furious 5 at 9, and it was like unbelievable to us.
All right, perfect. We've got so many of your great fans. We got somebody on the phone there? Yeah, Matt from Minnesota. Matt from Minnesota. Let's get him on the phone here. Let's see if hopefully we're not going to blow us out. Code? Can we hear him? Try. Matt, can you hear us? Matt from Minnesota? Okay. Great rock tradition. It all works until, you fucking tee it up. All right, Matt from Minnesota. He wanted to know, let's see if you can get him back on there. I got a whole bunch of other questions. I'm going to just rapid fire them at you, okay? We'll call this the 2-minute drill for the first half here. Rory wants to know, which A7X song do you think is the most underrated?
Oh, man, underrated? Save Me or Buried Alive. I don't know if Buried Alive is underrated, but to me, it's our best song. So I wish it had the best response.
Cecily W. wants to know, hey, Matt, I know the DVD is going to have a lot of live performances in it, but will it also show you guys making the album and any funny behind-the-scenes moments?
It will have everything that we have to offer. So
including some funny behind-the-scenes moments.
Yeah, it will have its moments, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes band bloopers is a little bit of dangerous territory here. God, I remember seeing that freaking Metallica thing when they were like coming unhinged, and I thought, I didn't need to see this, Yeah. God, I had this image, it just ruined it for me. Anyways, pardon me if they're watching out there. They're tough guys. I don't want to get beat up by them. Okay. Guitar 7X wants to know, he said, I've been a huge fan since I was a little something. He didn't finish that. I was wondering, what's your favorite song to play live?
I enjoy Nightmare. Nightmare would be my favorite live. The energy is just ridiculous coming back at us.
Okay, and then one more in our first 2-minute drill here. Triforce Curious wants to know, have you ever gotten any memorable gifts from fans related to any of your interests, like golfing or gaming? We're going to handle that golfing one today. Or gaming, or maybe that turned you on to something new. I recall Gates telling a story of fans who made you cupcakes and you being the only one brave enough to eat them.
That's definitely true. I have faith in our fans. If they want to poison me, then so be it.
Doesn't look like you're eating a whole lot of those cupcakes.
No. But if I guess I've definitely had people bring golf stuff to shows, like bring clubs or balls or shirts, and it's cool, man. It's awesome.
Dude, I love that shit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know what? I had some Renman Renman MB logoed golf balls that I just ran out of last week, and I ordered them, and sure, they're going to be here in 7 days. Bullshit.
You got to give me some. I'll lose them all over the country.
That's by the way, they're easy to spot. You'll never hit the other guy's ball here. We'll come back to golf a little bit. Don't get me started here. All right, let's talk about these wacky, great fans of yours, right? You guys, the key for longevity for any band is great songs and great performances, in my humble opinion, right? But assuming you have that, I think bands that have gone out of their way to develop a personal connection with their fans that make them believe that they care and appreciate their supports, I think this idea of making it personal is huge. And I know my friends from Incubus did it, and I can just sense it with the enthusiasm of your fans. Talk about that connection between your band and your fans and what it means to you guys as musicians.
Well, it's pretty simple. We were those kids at one point. We were those fans at one point. We were the ones going to every show every weekend, waiting back, behind the venue, trying to meet our favorite bands. And we met some really nice ones, and we met some really mean ones. And to us, now we're in a position to make everybody who meets us hopefully feel like they met somebody that they wanted to meet. Mm-hmm. You meet that guy, and you're like, man, I wish I never met that guy, because now my whole it's ruined. And that's one thing we've always kept in mind. And we just come from the same school. We came from the Warped Tour. We came from Ozfest. We came from just a different upbringing with how the fans and the band are the same. We're just people that came off the stage and went on the stage. There's no difference anymore. So we try to just treat our fans how we want to be treated.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say that, because I find that some bands, without mentioning, when I was growing up, the bands were all these big English rock bands. There was no MTV. There was no way to touch them. So there was a bit of this, you're lucky to be here tonight with the Rolling Stones. And I kind of dug it. But things have changed a bit now. And I think fans today, they want to have that personal connection. But I find that there's still bands out there that think that by being personal, by having good manners, by being appreciative, that they're somehow selling out and groveling at the feet of their fans. And I just think it's...
Well, I think there's a fine line. For us, we try to stay off of giving too much of ourselves out there. We try to stay away from all the personal, private part of our lives. But at the same time, there's a fine line to where we obviously are very grateful for where we're at, and we know that we wouldn't be here without fans. I mean, we're going to play by ourselves on a stage with an empty arena or empty club? No. So when we do show a little piece of ourselves, we try to be as respectful, and we understand where the fan's coming from. But at the same time, we're not sitting on Instagram all day showing you what we ate for breakfast, and because there is a sort of mystique that you want to keep. When I grew up, my favorite bands, I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know anything. And when I did see them, it was like, oh my God. And now you get bombarded with every interview being nitpicked to, for clickbait online. And that's a little annoying to me, because a lot of my favorite bands have been ruined in that way, where they just get overexposed.
Yeah, I think it's actually true, and I think, like I said, when I was growing up, you didn't have all this pervasive media, social media, and all this. You saw the Rolling Stones by paying your freaking money and going and seeing them, and it did add something special. It did add something to it when you were wondering, is Keith in jail?
Yeah.
Is he making it to the show?
And then they hit the stage and you can't believe they're right there in front of you. Dude, I had that feeling growing up,
I still remember my first Rolling Stone concert, 16 years old, when Mick Jagger popped out of that big tongue. It changed my life, and I'm not bullshit, man. It was like, holy shit, burned my buddy's hair up he was smoking hash and he got his hair on fire. But that's another whole story. He turned out to be a lawyer, okay? Anyway, let's take a few more questions. Is that phone working, Cody, or are we just tapping out on everything today? All right, well, there you have it. That's rock and roll for you. Maya Pedron wants to know, I hope I pronounced that right. It says, she asked, music is inspired by what we hear every day, Matt, and see every day. What is the strangest idea that has inspired the creation of a song for you? And she has 16 other add-on questions, but we'll start there.
I mean, the strangest idea that we ever went with, which was left field for us on this last record, was a song called Planets. And that was more of an intergalactic war, and it's like not even the problems we have on this planet. It was like someone else is coming to destroy us. And that's about as far out there as we've gotten. Also a song called Little Piece of Heaven, which I don't want to get into the details, but all of our fans know that that's a pretty out there song. So there's been a few wacky ones, but I think that's part of, throwing it out there and being into it at the time and seeing what happens. It's part of being an artist.
I like to say, you got to try on the suit to see if you look good in it, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you go, I look great, and then you wake up the next morning and go, I look
Can't believe I took a picture with that thing on. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just me. All right, perfect. She has one other question here. Also, Matt, can we see other songs from Hail to the King, such as Coming Home and Acid Rain, being added to the set list for future concerts?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much, we had an interesting album cycle, and the reason the album cycle changed this album is because we were building for certain things in Europe and in international markets throughout of our whole history. This year we finally got to headline a lot of those festivals, and it's very hard to go back to those cities multiple times after doing a big festival like that. It's just a nature of the beast. It's a good problem to have, but one of the problems is you kind of go through those cities less, and being on tour isn't a 2-year process now. It's more of a 1.5-year process or less. And so bringing out all these different songs when you have 6 albums to choose from, it's really tough. I'm sure we'll play Acid Rain Coming Home at some point, but right now I just don't know when.
Well, exactly. For bands that have history, you can't play them all unless you're the Grateful Dead and do 4 hours. I love the internet there. People are happy to tell you what they think. Maya, I don't know how to pronounce. She goes, hey, you pronounced my name wrong. Sorry, Myra. Got the question in there. Anyway, your songs are going to be played on that next tour. Let me ask you another one here. By the way, I'm just kidding you, Mayra. Why don't you give me a phonetic spelling on here, Mayra? Help me out here so I don't look so fucking stupid.
You're digging yourself a hole, man.
I'm used to it, okay? I was a manager. I'm used to being shit on, okay? It fucking rolls off me. That's why I make a good golfer. It doesn't bother me that much. Okay, we have another one here from Capman A7X. He says, first off, Matt, thanks to you and your bandmates for everything. I owe more to A7X for my passion as a musician than you will ever know. My question, I was wondering, why is it so damn hard to meet you guys?
Oh, I don't know, man. We've always had a little bit of a, it rubs us wrong to charge fans to do meet and greets and stuff, and a lot of bands do it.
Yeah.
And don't even want to get into that because that's just what they want to do, and they want to make more money on the back end, they can do it. For us, we've always felt that strange. So if you meet us, I promise you everyone in this band's the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But at the same time, maybe we should figure out a way that we do contests where people get to meet us or this and that. But the whole paid meet and greet thing just rubs us the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we choose not to do them. It's just one of those things where it just rubs us the wrong way.
Yeah, I think people forget sometimes when you go to a concert and there's 10, 15,000 people out there, right? Well, I think most artists would like to be friendly and meet everybody. Boy, it's almost impossible to make that happen without it turning into, like a melee out there. So for all you folks out there, remember all the bands are at the office, kind of.
Well,
and
I also saw things like online, like where people were like, oh, we were waiting at their bus after Mayhem. And it's like, no, you weren't, because the buses were so far into this compound that they might have been waiting at some bus, but we don't want them to think it was us and that we were trying to get away from them at some point. It's interesting to see the things that perpetuate themselves online. And so when you're thinking about being in an arena or most of those outdoor venues on Mayhem Festival, you probably weren't in front of our bus and we weren't trying to ignore you. If you were there, we would have seen you and we would have talked to you. But just got to get that out of the way because it's just not true.
I'm with you. I've fielded that question on behalf of my buddies before, and you do the best you can, but people's enthusiasm can sometimes get away from them. Now I want to see how it's Myra. Okay, Myra. Sorry. Oh, now we got that one sorted out here. Let me know if there's any other great questions in the chat room there, James. All right, we got. Let's see. We got one from. Okay, here's another short one for you. Alex 7X. Everybody wants to have that 7X at the end of the name.
Perfect.
This is good, man.
Perfect.
Alex 7X from Houston, Texas, the home of James. I'm always early
James,
over there. And he was today. What's up? When I first heard the new Waking the Fallen Resurrected intro, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking badass. But why wasn't it in the original album instead of the shortened intro that was in it?
We just felt it didn't stand up as its own song, and when we said it was going to be an intro, we felt the other thing represented an intro better. One thing that happens is, this is so obvious. Every time you release something that wasn't on a record, everyone says, that's better than the whole record, why wasn't that there? The reality is, as a record, Waking the Fallen, when it came out at the time, the intro that we used worked better as an intro for that album than what there is now. I know it's exciting to hear it now because it's been 10 years. But at a certain point, we just have to make decisions on what we feel artistically is going to work for us.
Yeah, I just as a brief aside, folks, the bands are actually in charge of the music. It's not a committee thing, is it, right? We're not doing market research here.
2014, It might be a committee thing. I think everyone likes to let you know what you need to do on the next record. And
God bless them, man. I always want to sit there and put those people in the seat and say, you make the call, and then everybody else will piss on your idea.
Well, it's funny because when we were making the game, which we haven't talked about at all, but we had a bunch of people working on the game that were like, I used to be one of those people that commented, and now that I make stuff myself and I put it out there and everyone's commenting on me, I can't believe I had the gall to do that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because when you start creating and putting stuff out there and you see the things that come back at you, sometimes it gives you a different perspective on doing that to other people.
It's so funny because, for years I was the manager sitting, at the sound desk and doing my thing pretty anonymously. And then I started doing this web show where you kind of get out in front. And so Brandon Boyd used to kid me. He goes, well, now you know what it's like to to feel like the fucking singer in the band, Rennie. Everything you do, everybody wants to dissect. And it's true, and I've become a fucking insecure, neurotic wreck over it. And it's probably obvious right now. Okay, we had that question from Matt, who we can't get him on the phone, but we'll make. Hi, Matt, you're on with Mr. Shadows. Your question? How do I stand out amongst other bands? Thanks for the question. Em,
it just depends on what you're doing. I mean, I think for us, stylistically, I think being from Southern California helped us a lot because we had so many influences with punk rock and heavy metal and British heavy. Everything was, there's a scene in Southern California for everything. And we're kind of...
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, we're kind of like this, morphed into this crazy concoction of weird things. And that helped us because our style, we didn't think it sounded weird, but then you're sending the record out to Metal Hammer in England to get reviewed, and they're like, what is this? This is just bizarre. What is this band? Or Kerrang or these other countries. I think what you got to do is just do what's in your heart, be original, and just do what you want to do, and it'll come across fine. Don't try to write for radio, because everyone tries to write for radio, and then you're just basically, you're taking, Nickelback songs and Shinedown songs and trying to write that, 3.5 minute hit. It's never going to work. Just do what you do, and you'll stand out.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, for the folks out there that are of that mindset. Here's the one thing I've learned over the years. If you're shooting at what's happening right now, it's always a moving target. So by the time you get the bullet on the target, it's freaking moved. And that's why the real artists are not afraid to move ahead of the game, and then the game catches up with them ultimately, right? But people miss that one all the time. Okay, we got a couple more here, because I know that when we don't answer all these questions, I'm going to get a freaking 100 emails going, dude, why'd you talk so much?
Man. Yeah.
You suck, man. Fuck, you're old, you suck. Michaela D. Morris, I know I'm pronouncing this one right, from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Wants to know. By the way, we've got a ton of people from around this world that we'll talk about when they ask all their touring questions coming up here. She goes, hey, Matt, if you could work with any artist that is alive or is dead, who would it be and why? That's a good question. Be like your featured foursome of rock.
Actually, it wouldn't be as much a rock guy anymore. It'd probably be Danny Elfman.
Really?
From Oingo Boingo, and does all the soundtracks. Because what he consistently does blows my mind. And his soundtracks blow my mind. I think Oingo Boingo is great, and it's just different. And I like that outside of the box thing.
Dude, I fucking love that. Now, you're probably too young to tell me that you actually went to all those Halloween shows that we used to do at Irvine Meadows back in the day.
I didn't go to those. I'm too young.
Dude, can I tell you something? They were King Kong here in Southern California.
Oh,
They would do 3 nights at Irvine, blow it out, and then they go to Kansas City and be begging for 1,000 people.
Well, it was the K-Rock effect. You get played on K-Rock, and you can do it well here. And if other stations don't pick it up, you see that drop off everywhere else. But yeah, Oingo Boingo, they're like Southern California heroes, man.
All right, folks, for all you folks that are all going, Oingo Boingo, who's that? Google him, man. They were a great live band, too, and his manager's a good friend, and he would be stoked to hear that here today. Okay, let's see. I think that's it. Okay, I have to ask this one. Okay, one stupid fan question here. Not stupid, but I'm looking at your...
I'm looking at hole again. Digging that hole.
There you go. Not stupid, because I'm looking at your hairdo. Here's what it is. It says, Sean Abbey wants to know, hey, Matt, what's next for the hair? I don't think the mullet should be out of the question.
Well, the mullet was there all summer, so maybe I'll do the reverse mullet and just shave the top and let all the sides grow.
It's a little mysterious. I'll leave it that way, okay?
Yeah.
If you make a birdie and you tip your cap at the end of the 18, we'll know.
All right, perfect.
Okay, I'll report back to you on that one, Sean. Okay, let's talk about something else that I love when I look at your band here. All these marketing folks and all the people that write now, they talk about the music business like it was a fucking Procter & Gamble marketing meeting. We're going to be branding, we're building the brand and all this stuff. Where when I grew up in the business, you were just building a band, and what is now characterized as the brand was just their thing. The Rolling Stones had their thing, the Who had their thing, right? You guys have built quite a thing going on here. And for me, I look at all the imagery and the t-shirts and the album covers, and you guys have a definable, identifiable thing going on there, right? With all these graphics. Very reminiscent for me in my world of Iron Maiden back in the day, who would have been the equivalent of what you guys are doing, where it was lunatic fringe audience. They came out of nowhere and everybody had that shirt. I still see kids walking around with the Eddie t-shirt, but I see a lot of these Avenged Sevenfold shirts. I'm not saying that just because you're here today. They're out and about. Who was the person, or who came up with that whole idea of this Avenged Sevenfold imagery, in that kind of dark. I don't even know how to describe it. Who was behind all that?
Me and Zachy Vengeance, our guitar player, we were in high school and we said we wanted something. We wanted a logo that you could stamp anywhere and you wouldn't have to put our band name. And that was really important to us because one of our favorite bands was the Misfits. They had that. Iron Maiden, Megadeth had Vic Rattlehead. Metallica had the stick guy with the the heavy metal signs, and so everyone had like their thing that they had. And if you go further back, Rolling Stones had the tongue. I mean,
the tongue.
Yeah. I mean, even Kiss's logo, right? It was the thing. So for us, it was we want to be able to put this on shirts and put it on records and not put our name anywhere. So we need a logo. And so we got together with our buddy Micah Montague at the time, who was a year younger than us in high school. He was a sophomore at the time, and we said we want a realistic skull with realistic bat wings. We want you to draw it. And he drew it for us on a big piece of paper, and we just said, that's it. That's our logo. We're putting that everywhere. We're not even going to use our name anymore. And that was it.
Love it. You know, one of the other great bands from Orange County, you probably know, Social D, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they had the little stick, man.
I even have a Social D tattoo, yeah.
Do you have a Social D tattoo? Oh, look at that. Yep. Love it, man. I remember when Jim Garno, who Larry and I knew, would come up from Orange County. He worked at Avalon Attractions, and he had a sticker on his old beat-up Volkswagen before the band, I don't think it ever put a record out. And he still has it, and he never got a tattoo. But
it's classic, man.
They were classic, and it was really who they were. All right, speaking of branding, you guys, I know I've come to find you're a big video gamer, right? Yeah. And you've been at that for a while. You guys have recently come up with your own video game, not your first foray into the video world. You had a big track in the Call of Duty, if I'm not mistaken, right? Talk about how that came about, and then I want you to talk about how you guys decided to do your own video game, which I reckon is just another extension of this whole thing that you guys have got going on.
Yeah, well, the whole video game world thing actually happened between our manager's relationship with a guy named Steve Schnurr over at EA.
He's going to be on the show December 3rd, folks.
There you go. So he was at EA at the time, and he was doing soundtracks for Madden and doing soundtracks for NHL, 03 at the time, or 02, whatever it was. And he heard Waking the Fallen because Larry gave it to him. And he said, I think video games can break bands. I want to prove that, I want to use this band as an example of what we can do with new artists. Because at the time, the music industry was dying in a way with record sales and whatnot. So that's how we got into video games. And we were already, massive video game players. So we were ecstatic to have our songs in such big games. We did a lot of work with EA. And then over time, we got acquainted with the guys at Treyarch and Activision, and we done stuff with Guitar Hero and this and that. We knew our fans played video games and that they enjoyed listening to Avenged Sevenfold in their games. Then the opportunity came to do stuff for Black Ops and Call of Duty, which turned into Black Ops 2. At the end of the credits, we're in the game, which was massive.
Like a movie at that point, right?
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
So we've always had a relationship with video games and our fans. And one thing, we realized was that when you're looking at reviews on websites, you can kind of click on people and see what they're into. And it was always, we're reviewing all these games, and I'm reviewing, Five Finger Death Punch and Avenged Sevenfold records. So it was like, well, it was a no-brainer. And I always wanted to make a game. So I went to the guys and said, let's make a video game instead of putting out all these, excuse the term, but crappy music videos that are, getting smaller and smaller budgets, like that we can't do backcountry anymore. It doesn't, that budget doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we're kind of given a couple $1,000 going, make a great video, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So for us, we said, why don't we give them the experience of walking into our world that we've created through a video game?
Perfect. Let's play a little clip of that right here for you folks. I can't doubt anybody watching isn't familiar with, but there'll be some of our fans on here that are feeling very rock right about now. Play it if you would, Code. All I can say is, hail! Hail! All right. We had a question here. We were just talking while we were off mic here about how many fans are around the world for your band, right? And I can honestly say this will be the first gentleman writing in. We should probably kind of got him to call in. His name is Max McLarens. I reckon that's probably not his real name. Max McLaren doesn't sound very Russian, but he's from Russia and he wants to know. He goes, "Hi, Matt. I'm writing to you from Smolensk, Russia. I have just two questions. Because of where you got the idea to create Game Bat." I'm going to say that was the question, is how did you come up with the idea for Death Bat?
Well, there's a long answer and a short one. The short one is
we got time.
Yeah, well, I wanted to write a AAA game. I had a few meetings with my friends at Treyarch, and they told me how expensive it would be to make a AAA game, in 200, 300 million range, to get someone like Activision on board. And it's 4 or 5 year long process if you want to do it properly. So he said, why don't you dip your toe in the water and do a mobile game first? And it had nothing to do with Avenged Sevenfold, but we were in Asia one day and I saw everyone on their smartphones playing casual games, playing more intense games like Infinity Blade and Candy Crush. I mean, they're playing everything. And I went to the guys and said, what if we made an Avenged Sevenfold game? And they said, it was just like a no-brainer. It was like, we have to do this. So that's how it started off. That was the inspiration, was to give fans a different approach than what they're used to, something different that they can be involved
in. Now let me ask you a lame question here. So if you were doing a big movie for $300 million, you'd have a script and you'd have rewrites and somebody'd have a story and all of that stuff. I looked at the game a little bit. I'm not a big gamer myself here, but I sat there and looked at it and think, okay, who came up? How do you develop the storyline? Because there's all kinds of little twists and turns in this. Yeah. Do you script that all out? Do you actually storyboard it out? How does that all come together? I think a lot of people want to know.
Yeah, it's called a GDD. It's a game document design, and you write it all out. So there's everything from you're going to have to deal with. You're dealing with the physics, the mechanics. You're also dealing with the story, the dialogue. You're dealing with cutscenes. You're dealing with a lot of different people that need to work on the project and all be on the same page of exactly how fast does the enemy work. Well, that has a lot to do with how fast the fireballs come out of their hand, or how fast the choppers are, or the rolling spikes. Everything has to do with each other. It's a really tedious process, and you really got to get everybody on the same mindset. But a GDD helps a lot.
Now, when you're doing that inside a band, right, with the greatest respect to every band out there, sometimes, it's great being with 4 or 5 guys in a band, but God, trying to get 4 or 5 people to agree on everything is damn near impossible sometimes. Was it just a couple guys in the band kind of leading it, or how did that work amongst the band members?
Well, we all kind of do our own things. Zachy, our guitar player, does a lot of the art in terms of like album layouts and like how he wants the cover to look. He obviously talks to all of us and we get all on the same page, but he's the one that's really spearheading that. For this video game, I spearheaded it. I'm a gamer. I know what I feel like gamers want and what I want out of a game. And if they don't play that type of game, you don't really want them going, okay, well, you got to change this, when it really makes no sense. So they let me spearhead this, and everyone kind of does their own thing in this band, and we let people do what they're good at.
I gotta love it. We saw a great picture, if you got it over there, Cody, we were doing a little investigating online of you in the next generation of Shadows, gaming it up. Look at him! God bless you.
That's actually Chris Jericho's son.
That's not your kid?
No, that's
Okay. Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. My son is actually only 2. But what I do is I give him a controller, and he just cheers me on. He thinks he's playing, but he's smart, and he figured out his controller doesn't work.
Well, that was just a cheap showbiz gag. They said, when in doubt, just go with kids and dogs, right? So
there you go.
Strike out. Okay. We got another phone call we want to try, Cody. Feeling dangerous? Let's take one.
Are they on the phone?
Are you on the phone with us?
Hey there, it's Matt from Minnesota. How's it going?
Oh, fuck, Matt. Where the hell have you been, man?
Hey,
go ahead. You're on with Mr. Shadows here, M. Shadows.
Hey, well, I had a question for you guys. In the early days of Avenged Sevenfold, there must have come a time where you guys realized that, hey, this is a really special project, and we can really take this a long ways. How did you go about helping other people see that? And I thought the logo thing was great. How did you differentiate yourself when it came to dealing with record labels, managers, venues, other bands? Because I'm sure it's a hyper-competitive market out in California. How did you really guys set yourselves up for success?
I think it started with, songwriting, what we were talking earlier. When we were writing City of Evil, there was no guitar solos on the radio. There was no, 6-7 minute songs. We were just doing our own thing. But at the same time, we were trying to play the venues that we knew our fans wanted to see us in. We were going to as many cities as possible, but we weren't trying to overplay. A lot of bands overplay, and that's kind of detrimental in some ways. And also, we had a great manager that understood that we needed to develop as a band, and his job was to go tell all the promoters that we were the next greatest thing, and that's what you want in a manager, someone who really believes in you. So you build a team around you who are not only your friends, but they really believe in you, and then you just go out there and try to write the best songs possible and do your own thing.
That's good advice, Mr. Matt from Minnesota. Yeah, interesting to hear you talk about building that team too. For Matt down in Minnesota, that's so important, right?
Yeah.
Because making music and building your live performance and working on that, that's a full-time gig.
Yep.
So if you have to spend your time out, taking care of marketing and promotion and all that stuff, it's difficult. And for all the folks watching out there, for big successful bands like Avenged Sevenfold, typically you will see that great manager that's been there that can take what an artist is doing and give you honest input, which sometimes can be uncomfortable, I reckon, but that can help take what you're doing and magnify it and give you the time to keep getting better at the music. And so if you're looking to rise above, folks, getting that team together is a crucial part of the whole exercise.
And also for us, it was about, our manager's always, he hasn't tried to take on a bunch of projects. A lot of times people, you look at Pink Floyd's manager, Maiden. I mean, they are focused on that band. Even Metallica, and it's a 24-hour job, all the time. And if you have too many things going on, then it just gets lost,
I got to tell you, it's just fun to hear you say that because it's true. It used to be a very old school thing where managers were referred to as personal managers, and it really was a manager. Led Zeppelin had Peter Grant, I'm blanking. U2 with Paul McGuinness, Cliff Bernstein and Peter Mensch weren't the first man. They've been with Metallica a long time. And that phenomenon now of the mega management firm, I'll say it now because I'm not a manager anymore, is highly overrated. Focus, dedication, one way to win. Wind at your back, that'll keep your fucking attention, I'll tell you. And for me and my buddies with Incubus, I had one band for 17 years. I said, when I'm done with these guys, I'm done being manager, and held true to that. All right, Matt, does that answer your question there?
Yeah, that's great advice from both of you guys. Thanks, Matt.
And by the way, for your persistence, you not only get a great "Fuck the Gatekeeper" T-shirt, Cody, you've got to style them up with a coffee mug because they had to fucking wait forever. Okay. All right. So give your email address to the guys there, and we'll hook up and get you that out to you. Thanks for calling in, my friend.
Thank you.
We got another hail to the king question here from Wes Summers, who I'm not sure where Wes is from, but he's out of America. He says, hi, man, I wanted to ask this question for a while now. In 2013 on the Hail to the King tour, Sinister would play his guitar solo at every show. Now they're going to start calling. At every show at mid-concert. The ending of his solo, I've come to find out through listening to the HTTK Deathbat soundtrack, when the rest of the band came in, was the intro to the 8-minute sound clip you posted here. Was that a hint to the game? I know you're a gamer, so was that sort of an Easter egg to see if people would notice that his solo was part of it? Do tell.
Yeah, we weren't trying to hide that his solo was part of it, but the reality is we were actually making the game before we even started writing the record. And what some people don't realize is that when we were laying out hints to that we were in the studio, we actually had a picture of a Pro Tools, a computer screen with Pro Tools on it. And you notice that Andronicus is one of the names on it. Andronicus ends up being the character in the game. Yeah. So we were hinting way back then that there was a game and this album coming out. So in the song, that dueling guitar part was actually written for Hail to the King, but when we decided to keep the neoclassical part out of the record and go more blues on this record, we kind of put it on the back burner. And then he started using it as a solo, but we always knew that was going to be a part of the soundtrack. So it's one of those things where one actually came before the other, and then we used it as the solo so that people could look back on it, and it's cool that he found it out.
Yeah, it's fun that your audience are so consumed with the band that they're constantly searching for these little tidbits, and these are the things I look for as signs of a real connection, right? When you guys mean more than just a record playing, on the radio or on their computer for these folks, and kudos to you and all your bandmates for that. One final question here from Hurutagan, and I hope I pronounced your name, Huru. If not, forgive me. He said, hey, Matt, will Hail to the King Deathbat have an iPhone controller support? Kind of a techie question.
Well, we did have iPhone controller support on it at first, and it was pushing the game over the optimization limits for the 4S. So it was something that we had to actually take out of the game so that people with 4Ss could play the game. So when you're dealing with mobile, you're dealing with, your hands are kind of tied in certain ways. If we ever do a console game, we'll have everything in there. The graphics will be stellar. The controls will be there. But for right now, it's a mobile game, so we have to do what's best for everybody.
A console game that costs $300 million.
Man.
Jeez.
We'll Kickstarter it.
Yeah.
We need 300 million.
Larry's going to get right on that. Okay, good. Oh, jeez. Okay, is that phone working? We got another call?
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Okay, so we've got a good question here. James, this is on you, buddy. Okay, let's take another one. You want to take another question, man?
Oh, absolutely.
Fire away. Who do we have on there with us?
Are they on?
Are you on there? Hello? Hello? Okay, who's on the line with us?
My name is Skylar.
Skylar, don't listen to your computer at the same time. Just listen to what's coming through your headphone. Skylar, you're on with
the other room.
You're on with M Shadows. What's your question?
Yes. I was wondering, what was the hardest song that you have had to write or hardest song to record?
Hardest song to write would probably be, man, there were some hard ones on the new record because we were really trying to simplify ourselves, and we like to get a little crazy sometimes, and it was really hard to keep ourselves in check. So it'd probably be something off the new record. But in terms of recording, I think a lot of City of Evil was tough to record because I was coming off vocal cord surgery, and just to get performances out of my cords at that time, it may have been a little early to jump into it because you can tell there's a big difference between my voice on that album and then the White Album, which had 2 years to settle, 3 years to settle. So I remember calling Larry in City of Evil. I was just so mad because it was so tough to record that record. So yeah, City of Evil for the difficult factor, and then Hail to the King for just difficulty in writing.
Does it get tougher the longer you go along in a band to write and to find inspiration?
I don't think so. I don't think it's tougher to do that. I think what fans don't understand is sometimes bands want to try different things and do different directions. And sometimes it's tough to find that initial direction, but once you do, I've found for our 6 records, they've been pretty enjoyable, and I've been really proud of them, and I think we've accomplished what we're trying to set out. Then on that time off, you sit there and you really try to find the next direction, what excites you at that time. And then that's kind of, when that happens, then you're onto it, and then you're ready to roll.
Yeah. It's like a good round of golf. Once you get you get off to a good start, you get rolling. Okay, there's one more golf reference here. Quick, a little follow-up question. You had the vocal surgery and so forth. One of your fans wanted to know. Capman A7X wants to know, your vocal style, Matt, is like any I've never heard before. The amazing range and amazing texture to your sound. If there was one piece of advice to give to young vocalists that want to achieve texture and grit like yours, what would it be?
Well, I know that a lot of the texture and grit that I had originally was just natural. It was just what my voice did. I still work a lot with Ron Anderson, and he's been able to get me to a place, vocally where I can go from clean to distorted, and I can do it without injuring myself. So he's basically opened up my world to have any option I want when I go out there, so my advice would be to get a good vocal coach, someone that really knows what they're talking about, someone that's not just getting you the sound, but they're doing it in a healthy way, someone that is recommended by the vocal doctors that say, this guy is going to help you get there. I know there's a lot of vocalists on tour that have asked me, and I've sent them to Ron, and he makes their world change, you know? And so I would say it's all about getting a great vocal coach if you're really serious about opening up your range and really figuring out how to do it without hurting yourself.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to do it in the studio where you can work on a song maybe a day or maybe 2 days to do it. Quite another matter when you're going out there and playing. What do you guys do, a couple hours set every night?
Well, that's one thing I found was that when we were on tour doing 35, 45 minutes, I was able to push it, Now when you're doing an hour and a half or 2 hours, you need to really maintain. So on this last whole cycle, I really cleaned it up a lot in terms of like the rasp and the distortion. If we were to do a week of touring, I could do that and it would be fine at 2 hour sets. But when you have, literally 78 dates in front of you in a 4 month span, you better take care of yourself or you're going to be canceling shows. And so for me on this last year, I really honed down the screamy distortion to make sure that we got through all the shows and everyone was having a good time and that I was hitting all the notes. I wanted to hit notes over the rasp. So It's one of those things where you just have to give and take. You have to prioritize.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of folks have gone through that, and it's a whole different animal when you're doing this for a living, you know, and it's,
Headlining to opening is a whole different
man.
animal. Yeah.
And I think, you know, not anybody's going to sit there and, you know, cry for us for whining about how tough it is to be in a rock band, but it's a lot tougher. Larry knows, managers know. It looks easier from the outside because everybody's seeing that one night, their night.
Yeah.
But you're doing another 100, and tomorrow will be another person's night. And to be able to sustain that is not easy, and you have to do it. We have another. Is that on the phone with us there? Okay. It was on the. How do you deal? Somebody. What was the name of that person who asked that question? Okay. Well, we're going to come back to that one here. Unless you want to answer that one about how do you deal with writer's block. Do you ever have writer's block? You got a whole bunch of bandmates with you.
I haven't really had like a major case of it. I mean, you might have a week where you just don't like what's coming out, or you put really high expectations on yourself, which we do every time.
Mm-hmm.
So you might write for a month and then you throw it all away. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't consider that writer's block. I just consider that looking for the right song and the right groove that you're going for. But sometimes a lot of the pressure is just it's you put it on yourself, and that's it's one of those things that you have to decide what kind of person you are. Are you going to push for the best you can do, or are you just going to say this is good enough?
Yeah.
And we always try to kill ourselves.
And sometimes sometimes I don't know about you, but it happens in all different walks of life, sports and music. Sometimes you just get in your own way, and you just need a break and something to distract you, and then you come back and you're fresh, and all of a sudden stuff is flowing.
Well, a lot of our biggest songs were written without trying to write them. And that's how most artists will tell you that. Our Nightmare song was written while I was riding a bike after playing basketball down the street, and the whole song came to me. Yeah. Like it literally, the verse, the bridge, the intro riff, every single part. And I just basically went home and put it right down. That was it. Yeah. And then there's other ones where you just slave over them, and they never turn out right.
It was always my experience that over the course of Incubus years, it's always seemed like their best songs, the ones that became the singles, always happened late in the recording process, right?
That happens, yep.
Is that because you're in that groove now, and now you're rolling, and is it really just a case of now you're in it, so the more you do, the better it's getting?
I don't know. For us, sometimes we listen to what we have, and then we try to figure out what we're missing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that thing that you're missing is what resonates with most people, and that you get a single out of it, or you get a big song out of it, or you're trying something new and it works.
Yeah, perfect. We got somebody on the phone there? We got, is it Mayra, the one that was, okay, Mayra, this is where I could be a mean man, but I'm not gonna. Okay, you're on with M Shadows. Myra, tell us how you pronounce your name. You got it? Myra, you there? Okay.
She hung up on you.
She hung up on me again. Okay, we're trying to keep you happy. Why do I feel like she's my wife? Sorry, hon. Okay, let's go take another question. Actually, let's take another one that we'll have to answer today, and we're going to hear about it forever. You guys are a big touring band, okay? And once you become a big touring band, it's a nice problem to have. People can't get enough of you, but it's like your set list. Everybody's got one, but there's always some place you haven't played. So today, I could go on for days on these, but I'll just go and maybe do a quick 1-2 between you and manager here, and just go through some cities and names, okay?
Oh, no.
Rumors of a tour in the U.S. True, false?
False.
False, okay. All right, cleared that right up. Night Killer, do you plan to visit Europe with the music tour next year, specifically Finland, Sweden, Germany, Russia, and Poland?
Next year, no. Next
year, no. Breaking hearts here today, Mr. Shadows. Double V from Russia. I already covered that. Eventual, forever. I'm from Russia. You have many fans here in Russia, and everyone looking forward to your arrival. When will you visit us? You guys played Russia yet?
We've been trying. It's it's one of those things where it comes down to logistics and what else is going on in that area. Just to fly into Russia for a couple shows that we've never been there, it'd be really tough to do that at this point. It's definitely on our list of that, and South Africa are places that we really need to get to,
Those were on my wish list, but I didn't stick around long enough. Russia, I would love to go to Russia myself. Micah from Brazil. I'm in Brazil. Fans here want. I also want. When are you guys coming back to Brazil? Likely Rock and Rio, because I'm from Sao Paulo. Any plans to go back?
Not right now.
I saw you guys for the first time in Brazil and Sao Paulo. What was the name of that festival, Larry?
SWU.
And
Oh,
you
man,
guys
you're gonna get in
played
trouble
on,
for that, dude.
You guys played on the same night as Incubus.
Yeah.
And I can remember watching you out there from the side of the stage. I came roaming out, and you had them just doing that fucking thing, 80,000. I thought, holy shit.
Yeah, Brazil's one of the best places for us, and we love going there. But right now, we did Rock in Rio last year, and then we just did a tour there. And right now, we need to take some time off and write a record. You can't just keep touring and then people expect you to have a record. It's not possible.
Okay, while we're breaking hearts,
Yeah.
okay, Harry J. Mueller, UK, coming back to the UK anytime soon? Making a record. I think it's going to be the same answer. May from Germany, you know what the answer is. Coming back, but not soon enough, obviously. C-Bomb from Maine here in the U.S.
That's the one place we're going.
Oh, you are going to Maine?
No.
Going to Portland, Maine. It's a one-city tour. Excellent. We have, you ever been to Croatia?
We've been there, yeah. But we're not going anytime soon.
We're not going to Croatia. Okay. Macedonia?
We're not going there anytime soon.
We tried it. We thought that was an ancient civilization, Macedonia. I guess it's in Greece somewhere. And then finally, we had two, not one, but two people from Morocco. Wanted to know, Larry, when does the band come into Morocco?
Sounds like fun, dude.
We have a lot of places to go in 2016.
Okay, folks, you heard it here first. They got to make a new record here first. Okay, we have one more phone call there, Code.
Hello?
Is
Oh,
it
there she
okay? Is it okay? Please pronounce your name. You're on with M Shadows, and will you forgive me for hacking your name?
No, it's okay. It's Myra.
Myra.
Sweetheart.
Okay. Okay, Myra,
Okay.
you're on with Mr. Shadows. What's your question?
Okay. Hi, Matt. My question is, I started playing the game a few days ago, and I'm not a huge gamer, but it's an amazing game. I've had so much fun playing it. So do you see yourself having a future in the gaming industry after Avenged Sevenfold is done?
Avenged Sevenfold will never die. But I will say this: if the fans want another game and they really truly want another game and there's enough fans for it, then we'll make another one. It'll just be a part of what we do. Put out records, put out games, and tour the world.
Look for the Indiegogo campaign, Myra.
There you go.
Hey, Myra, where are you from, Myra?
I'm from Salinas, California.
Wait, just lost it. Where are you from again?
Salinas, California.
Oh, Salinas. Why did I think you were from? See, I was trying to European your name up a little bit. Sorry, Salinas. God bless you. You know where Salinas is?
We played
last
shows
stop
there.
before you go over the hill to
What, San Francisco or
Pebble
or is it?
Beach, man.
Pebble Beach,
You played Pebble Beach,
God.
you guys yet? You haven't played Pebble Beach?
No, we have, but I've flown in every
Salinas.
time.
God bless you. Hot town here, but my favorite stop on the way to my favorite place in
We
the
used to
world.
play Salinas in like 2000, 2001. That was like a hot spot to play. There was a great
heard
hardcore
that.
scene there.
I found it on the internet and made me sad because I was probably in second grade.
Oh, at the time you were, yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well, you know what,
We'll come
Myra?
back.
Thanks for your patience in calling him in. Thanks for forgiving me here, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot. You take care now. And by the way, you want one of those great T-shirts? Somehow giving it to a nice lady like Myra seems like I'm going to turn her in the wrong
Getting a
direction.
t-shirt.
Huh?
I'm getting a t-shirt.
You can. Do we have any Dream It, Do It shirts left here, Code?
We'll find her one.
We're going to send you a T-shirt. Give your email to James here. We'll send you out a T-shirt.
no, wait, she needs this one.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
she
yes.
needs to wear
Thank
this
you
one to
so
school.
much.
Okay, she wants the F the gatekeepers. God bless you, Myra. You're a bold woman there. I'll tell you.
Myra.
Myra. God, I'm sorry. Jeez, okay? This is what happens when you start to lose it, Myra. Okay, couple more questions here because we got big plans for this afternoon here. We're filing this under what's next, Matt. Okay, now I'm seeing the finish line here. I'm
Okay.
rolling here. Brand Power 95 says, "Hey, Matt, I hope you're doing great. I just want you to know, I wanted to know what are the plans for Avenged Sevenfold in 2015, and when is the DVD coming out?"
I don't know exactly when the DVD's coming out. We're hoping for early 2015. We're working on it right now. It's what we're doing. We're editing. We're editing. We're mixing. We're making sure that it's right. And then it will be out. But in the rest of 2015, we'll get, I think by the summertime, we'll start writing a record.
Perfect.
And then,
Little follow-up
What's that?
question from Micah regarding the album. I was wondering if the new album has some influences of various consecrated band that you guys and I especially are fans of. I love you guys and loved Avenged Sevenfold.
what was the beginning of that question?
The question, some of these are not great English. I'm just going to say it, folks. I was wondering if the new album has some influence of various consecrated band that you guys are fans of?
The new album, from what we've been discussing, is very fresh and different than anything anyone's heard us do before. So that's all I can really say, because as soon as you say anything more than that, everyone starts expecting things, and yeah.
I'm going to cut you off right now for your own.
Yeah.
Well, good.
We're excited about it. How about that?
Okay, we have all kinds of little technical difficulties. You know, we've had so many people call in today that I knew we would get shit for not answering all the questions. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see half the names of all the people that submitted questions for the show today. So I want to say thanks to all those folks for taking the time, all kidding aside. You've got a wonderfully enthusiastic fan base, and I mean that, and I know what it takes to get one. And so for all you folks that took the time to call in, whose questions we didn't get to today, send Matt a bunch of emails, tell him you have to come back on the show again, and we'll do a wrap-up, on that. I can't end today without noting that, when you're in a band, you spend a ton of time working, touring, and we know that that can take a toll on anybody. So for the folks that have survived this, they've typically found some release, some mechanism other than music to take up their time and energy. You took up golf.
Yep.
Not the easiest one, not the greatest stress reduction one, I find sometimes. Tell me how you got into golf.
We were on tour with an old tour manager of ours named Jim Crocio. And
Jim.
yeah, so Jim, one day we were staying at a golf resort in Arizona, and he's like, I want to take you guys out golfing. And we're like, well, I don't know. And he's like, no, come on out and see if you like it. So we all got out there. And I've played sports my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I just kept slicing the ball. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is ridiculous.
But you were hitting it.
I was like, no, this should be easy. Like, why is this so hard? And so that day on the golf course, I just became completely addicted. I needed to fix my slice. I needed to learn how to play this game and be good at it. And so it's become an obsession. It became an obsession with everybody in the band, actually, and they kind of fell off because they got over how hard it was and how long it takes.
Yeah.
But after, the first couple of years, I kind of fell into it. And then I have a buddy who played just below the PGA Tour, who's like my best friend, and we play 4 or 5 times a week. He even goes on tour with me and plays, and we just love golf.
Now, I want you folks to know, because I know none of this crowd is going to read Golf Digest. Code, do you have that up there? Now, here's a picture of Michelle Wee, the great Weezy. Okay, yeah, you're looking good, man.
Yeah.
Show the picture of Mr. There you go. There you go. Now, that is rock here. Whose idea was it? Is that your caddy?
Well, I just brought my caddy along for the photo shoot.
Yeah, she caddying for us today? I hope.
Yeah, she's
Speaking of
out
obsession,
there,
just give me my finest moment up there, too. I'm going to be indulgent, Coach. Oh, golf starts out as a great escape, then some people really become serious about it. That's you. We were in that article.
There you
So,
go.
folks, check it out. Everybody's been asking me, honest to God, man, they go, dude, so how did you get M Shadows on the show? Like, it was an impossible thing. And I said, golf, okay?
Well,
greatest
there you go.
networking tool on the planet. Should we take one more phone call? You got anybody? No. Cody says, get the hell out of here. Okay, so thanks for all of you folks for dialing in, posting your questions online. I want to thank them, all of you. I want to say thank you to our Renman MB crew back here. I want to say thank you to my good friend, Mr. Larry Jacobson, your manager. And most of all, I want to say thank you to you
Thanks
for
for
coming
having
in
me,
and
man.
joining us here. Our next Renman Live, folks, for you folks who are looking to learn a little bit about this music business, October 29th, we're going to be joined by another golfer, Jim Urey, who is the head of UMG Music Distribution for years. He's one of the preeminent music marketing distribution guys in the business. He's going to be coming on the show to talk about what you do after you write that great song, how you get your music in front of people so that they might buy it. That's it for today, folks. If you're dreaming about doing something big in the music business, take a page out of Mr. Shadow's book and stop dreaming, start freaking doing, okay? And if you want to make it big in this business, remember, ask questions, hang out with smart people, and commit to learning. I'm the Red Man, and I am out of here.